Thank you so much for staying right here with us. It's still Atlantic Television Network, and like I told you before the break, the program is ATN Society Watch. I'm not alone in the studio to discuss these matters. I have with me Chukwu C. Ikechukwu. He is one of our regulars on Society Watch and is ready to discuss these pressing issues with you. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome.
Thank you, good to see you.
All right, welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, let's go to our first story now. This is on one pressing issue in Nigeria currently, and I'm talking about the petrol price. Now, we have report that petrol prices in Makurdi have surged to 1,500 naira per litre, leaving motorists and commuters stranded and frustrated. Prior to this sudden increase, prices ranged between 930 naira and 1,000 naira per litre, with an NPC mega stations selling at 670 naira per litre when available. And most filling stations in Makurdi were closed, but the few open stations sold at 980 naira. That's between 980 to 1,100 naira. And we also have reports that black marketers capitalized on the shortage, selling at 1,500 naira per litre. And long queues formed that NNPC mega station selling petrol at 898 naira per litre, while stations outside the capital charged up to 1,300, that's 1,300 naira per litre. We have civil servants and residents that have expressed anger and frustration over the rising prices and hardship that they are facing. They went ahead to actually say that the federal government, why is this federal government doing this to Nigeria? I'm quoting one of them now. How can they toy with the well-being of Nigerians by increasing pump price of fuel when we cannot feed our families and meet family commitments because of their bad anti-people policies? The government is obviously clueless. They should know that by increasing the pump price of fuel, inflation will continue to rise and Nigerians will be driven into poverty the more. All right, a lot of other statements that were made by most Nigerians, some Nigerians, that's from that particular state. But right here in Rivers State, we're also experiencing the same thing. We're experiencing a hike in, and sometimes it's not like they don't have the money to buy the fuel. They have the money to buy the petrol, but the problem is they can't even find it. I'd like to get your reaction to this story.
It's a problem on both having the money to buy and both seeing the product to buy. It was yesterday morning that I first saw a report that the fuel price at NNPC, which has hitherto sold at 560 something to 600, was selling at 850. I mean, it was captured in their meter reading that it's 850, so it wasn't a hearsay. Albeit that was in Lagos, but of course, you know, if an NNPC in Lagos sells that way, it should be the same thing in Lagos. But like the story you just read, even as at when it is 605 something, like the report said, when available, yeah, it's not always available. How many people can buy from the NNPC? Go to NNPC on Aba Road, there's a long queue. Somebody said the other time that he spent 14 hours to buy fuel. That's a productive hour. That man hour lost. That means, I mean, how many hours is even the man hour? 8 to 9 hours. By the time you spend 14 hours, that means if it were to be calculated, you have even done overtime in the filling station. These are time wasted. Calculate it by how many people were at that fuel station and other filling stations across the state, across the country. You know how many man hours the country has lost, how many productive hours the country has lost. Then just a few days back, I think last week, the Federal Food Protection, Consumer Protection was said to have given traders ultimatum to crash the prices of goods. I felt,
yes, 1 month.
Could this be a joke or something?
Why?
Before you give such this thing, you take a holistic look at the factors that affect the price of goods and services. See, since we started seeing this inflation in recent time, you are yet to see any of these persons, either traders or transporters, that have automatically become rich because they are charging more. It tells you something. The money they charge don't go to them. They buy at exorbitant price. People are being driven to poverty. Before you talk about crashing price of goods, you just said that a week, then just a few days after, the price of fuel goes up again. And with the price of fuel going up, that means the logistics for moving goods and services, but let's stay with goods and leave services now. For moving goods, will definitely go up. And with that increase in logistics, this is also a country where majority of the producers, the few producers that we have, use alternative power supply that run on petrol and diesel, you know, those things. So there is no, so that means the cost of production will go up, the cost of moving the goods will go up. With that, definitely we are not about to see the crash in price of goods and services. And of course, the suffering is becoming unbearable for most people. For crying out loud, even when you have the money, for the better part of this year, parts of Nigeria like Lagos and Abuja have consistently experienced fuel scarcity. People spending hours at the filling station. We can't continue like this.
Okay, let's talk about the reference you made to the 1-month ultimatum that was given to marketers to crash the prices of goods and services. Remember, in that particular meeting, we had, it was mentioned, a particular product was referenced. I don't know if you remember that story. A particular, was it blender or something in another country, was it the UK now, which is a particular price, and then a particular Lagos supermarket sold it like, not just like 10 times the price. So they are insinuating that there are probably some people, aside the primary cost which you have mentioned, there are probably some people who might be adding, that's inflating the prices artificially and, you know, taking advantage of the market's crisis that's currently going on.
Absolutely, there may be one or two Shylock, you know, in the system, trying to take advantage of it. But be that as it may, Nigerian over time has really not have a fantastic pricing system. But the thing is, for the goods, when Nigerians complain about inflation, we are not talking about blender. We are talking about food items, gari, yam, rice, things that we produce locally and we need for everyday, not luxury item like blender. Of course, it wasn't supposed to be a luxury item. But the thing is that with this increase in fuel, now with the new increase in fuel, by the way, we may not have seen the last increase in fuel. If you notice, since this year it has been from one increase to the other. So we may not have seen the increase. Definitely the price of things will go up. Definitely many more Nigerians would, rather than might, be driven into poverty, into hunger. Many more Nigerians, beyond the not having food to eat, inability to commute, to move from point A to point B is increasingly become difficult. So I think it's high time a solution is found.
What solution are you talking about?
You know, the excuses government would always give why these prices are going up, especially for fuel, is that, oh, it's an international product, we import the fuel and all that. But this is also a product we produce. The case of Nigeria is like a person who plants cassava, fries gari, sells the whole gari and go buy eba at exorbitant rate. Because we produce this, we find what we will use, so the prices will not be so much affected by the international market. Because you can't be telling us everything like, oh, this is not our fault, especially. And now the controversy again is that you claim on one hand that subsidy is gone, at another point government throws out figures that are supposedly money paid for subsidy. So if we keep experiencing this increase, can somebody explain to us or try to do a reconciliation between the removal of subsidy and the continuous payment of subsidy, and then the unending increase in fuel price with the attendant suffering people are going through?
You know, I asked that question this morning when we were talking about the removal of fuel subsidy, the announcement on the removal, and then the NNPC coming up to say they've been subsidizing the fuel that they get to import. If they were going to sell at the price at which they're importing, it would be way higher, right? So that means they're subsidizing close to half the price, according to them, as at that time. That was as at last week, according to reports. But now it's looking like the independent marketers are saying they are now buying higher than they used to buy at 950, 980, and definitely you don't expect them to sell at the price that they are buying. So that's where the increase. But Nigerians are asking, how come subsidy is removed as announced, and then you're talking about a price that is subsidizing for fuel. Okay, so why do we not have the same price? Why is there an increase if there's still a subsidy somehow
Something is not
being
right.
paid for
Exactly.
fuel?
Something is not right. If you're paying for subsidy, what percentage are you paying for? What percentage? Because you, on your own, you and I mean the government said subsidy is gone. The same government turns around and say we are paying for subsidy. What are you talking about? Then the practical reality, whether subsidy is gone or subsidy stays, is that we keep experiencing increase in the product every now and again. So that tells that something is wrong. The ordinary man in the street may care less about what terminology you use, whether you call it subsidy or you invent a new name for whatever you pay for. What they care about is the availability of products and the ability to afford same product. If I can't afford the product is rarely available, whatever you're saying may make little or no sense.
But now we have reports that Dangote refinery has ruled out fuel. Do you see that as a new dawn or break or light somewhere regarding fuel issues in Nigeria currently?
New dawn, maybe yes, but how does that new dawn impact the ordinary person? The breaking of a new day, how does it affect a dying man?
You don't think it will affect or impact the price of fuel?
Because a statement credited to Dangote himself, I think a question was asking or how if the product was from local source. His answer was local or not, that they get the product. So it definitely means that the fuel may not have come from NNPC, which means it may not be a local source. Probably got it from the international market. Then if he got it from the international market, of course he's into business. He's probably going to sell it at a rate which is obtainable at the international market. So it may make no much.
You said if he gets what from the international market?
The crude.
No, he's going to get it from...
no, but from his response, I said he was quoted to us saying whether local or not, that they found a way to get crude. So that suggests that the product didn't come from the local that is from the NNPC supply local market, because if it comes from that's the only way the government can even help and make the guy sell at a reduced price. If you give him from the local market and give him in naira price, if you didn't give him the naira price, you sold to him at international rate, you can't ask him to sell at a different price. So if these things are not factored in, how he got his crude, at what rate was he sold to? If he buys like every other Tom, Dick and Harry buys from the international market, you don't expect him to sell at a reduced price. I mean, then another thing that worries most of us, it's still a monopoly.
How?
Yeah, he's the only one refining the product here. So it's still a monopoly, especially when you consider other products the guy has produced. For example, cement. How cheap is cement? At least we have an antecedent of one of his products. How cheap is cement that is produced locally? So if he has not been able to crash the price of cement, just maybe he may not crash the price of...
Nigerians have been calling for the government to do something about our refineries since we're having issues with fuel price and all of that. And then we had reports that the Kaduna and the Warri refinery would be somewhat privatized for the next 5 years, but it's out for bidders now, so we're expecting bidders to come, and there are some criteria, although that has been provided in that regard. Do you see that as something that is, do you see that as the government taking out measures? How do you think that will affect the prices of inflation of fuel price we're having?
If those refineries goes to private hands, the only thing that is guaranteed is that they will probably work, since the guys who will take over the refineries will want to put it to work to recover whatever money they would have paid to government. It's business, so they would want to business to make profit, but it may not guarantee the crash in price of product if they face the same Herculean task Dangote is facing with getting product. But if we have a system here, because they are Nigerian refinery. Now, what I mean Nigerian refineries are because they are operating in Nigeria and they supply the Nigerian market, the Nigerian government through the NNPC or with their new name try to give them fuel. That's make it a priority to see that they get fuel before we sell to the foreign market, and also ensure that we sell to them with our local currency rather than
dollar.
Yeah, rather than the dollarized price. Then with that, maybe the prices can come down. But until
Right.
that happens, we may not see a crash.
Okay, so we hope that we'll see a light in that regard with the prices of fuel reduced, because when it's increased, when there's an inflation in that, we hear increase in price of transportation especially, and then transportation price would definitely affect prices of
goods.
It has a
multipliers
yes,
effect.
and then services, and that's what Nigerians are facing currently. We have been complaining about the hike, and then there's a further hike, so it should be actually looked into. But let's look at the next story now. Nigeria has called for a stronger partnership with the United Nations to achieve sustainable agricultural development and food security. This appeal was made during the visit of UN Deputy Secretary General Dr. Amina Mohammed to Abuja, where she discussed these issues with key stakeholders. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, emphasized the importance of this partnership due to Nigeria's large population and growing food demand. He highlighted the alignment of the ministry's efforts with President Tinubu's 8-point agenda, which prioritizes food security, economic growth, and poverty eradication. Kyari also acknowledged Nigeria's long-standing cooperation with various UN agencies, including the Food and Agriculture Organization and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and stressed the need for additional support for programs aimed at increasing food production and improving rural livelihoods. Dr. Amina Mohammed expressed the UN support for Nigeria's strategy to manage the ongoing food security crisis, which has been exacerbated by both domestic challenges and global disruptions. She highlighted the importance of coordinated efforts across all levels of government and the role of technology and biotechnology in addressing these issues, while also emphasizing the need to protect Nigeria's agricultural system. Despite the complexity of the crisis, Mohammed expressed optimism that with adequate support, Nigeria could effectively manage the situation. Do you see it as a situation that we could effectively manage? The food crisis now, the farmer headers clashes, which has taken a lot of farmers out of their farms, that has then led to food inflation and all of that.
That's the point. You hit it on the head. The thing is that, yeah, it's one thing to call for support, but what policies do you have in place that you're calling for partnership for? Support suggests that I'm trying to move this thing and I can't move it alone, so I'm calling you to support me. But if I'm not about to move anything and I call you to support me, what are you going to support me on? So I would have expected the minister to have stated that, oh, this is what our agricultural policy or food security policies are. Then we need support in this area. That will make it clear. But this may just be to keep the conversation going with the UN Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, who came visiting him. Incidentally, she's a Nigerian, so that's a good one. But what do you want support for? What are the policies? Like you mentioned, the insecurity issues that have driven farmers off the land. There are things that cannot be handled by any other person except the Nigerian government. And the other way another person can come in is if Nigerian government is specific that, okay, we need support in providing security, we need support maybe in irrigation or this. It's just not enough to say, oh, we need your support and partnership. Partnership, what is your own policy? It's high time they developed a food security policy. Until they have that, you can't just blankly tell people, oh, you need...
So how much would you say that the government is doing to curb the issues that we have with food scarcity and inflation?
If you ask me, the government is doing poorly now that is if they are doing enough. Reports have it that farmers cannot go to farm. That is where it begins. Even those that have planted cannot harvest their product. The other time we are talking about incidents of floods, and so we need a holistic policy that covers every part of the supply chain. When you produce, how do you preserve it when they are not needed? Before now, you go to the market, especially fruit market and other foodstuff market, you see items that is in season time, you see items perishing and being thrown away, even causing environmental nuisance, only for you to come back in 1 or 2 months those items can't be found anywhere in the market. So if we had a way of preserving them, maybe we would have solved that issue of decay and the inherent environmental issues they cause. So it's a holistic problem that needs to be addressed holistically. It is not enough to tell your visiting guests to partner with you. What exactly do you want partnership for? Draw up your policy, start working on it, then you can attract.
Okay, when we say that the government is not doing so well as regards agriculture and, you know, solving the food crisis we have, let's look at some of the policies that the government has put in place recently. When we look at the this flooding that we had in some of the northern states, we heard about a particular state where farmers were given certain amount of money to help them manage the losses that they must have incurred. That's one. And then we're looking at the agro rangers that have been deployed to certain states in Nigeria. I think 19 states plus the EFC, that's about 20 states in Nigeria, to curb the issue of farmer herders clashes. These are just two of the policies. If you know any other one you'd like to make reference to that you feel wasn't good enough, maybe you should tell us.
May I ask you, what is the result of the agro rangers you talked about? Do you have...
You know, the last we heard about that story was actually when those the rangers were deployed to these number of states.
To do what? To here? Deployed to
you
here.
You don't think that is
the farmers
a good
are
move?
still having the same issue. Theoretically, it's a good move, but until they begin to work, until you begin to see that farmers go back to farm, then it's just what it is.
But it's to start from somewhere, don't you think?
But the last we checked, farmers still can't go to their farm. So what are we talking about? We are the wares. After each flooding, you claim you give people money. What is that money supposed to do in the interim that the food crops have been lost? Wouldn't it have been better we preserve those items? I mean, we avoid such situation than giving out money after the deed has been done.
Okay, so you think flooding can be prevented? These are natural disasters.
You may not be able to prevent the flooding as it were, but most of the time these floodings don't just happen. They are anticipated. You have a history of flooding in particular areas, so cautions can be made, or you can develop a system that, like we talked about the other time, that can channel those flood water in such a way that they don't cause havoc to society.
All right, so you still stand your ground in saying the government has not done so much.
The government needs to do more. If the government has done much, like you are trying to credit them for, the effect would have been seen in the price of goods, of food items in the market. We wouldn't be having this skyrocketing inflation rather. So as long as we still have food scarcity, we still have inflation, it would be a little bit funny to say the government has done much. It will be a case of, claiming to have having a successful surgery, but the patient died. All
right, that's a sad one, a sad example. All right, let's take some time off now, go on a short break, and when we return, the conversation will definitely continue right here on Society Watch. Please stay with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for staying with us. It's still Society Watch. Let's go straight to the next story that we have here. Inspector General of Police Kayode Betokun has approved a new standardized uniform and kits for supernumerary police, also known as the spy police, to enhance their professionalism and visibility. Speaking at the unveiling, Ebetokun, represented by Deputy Inspector General Bala Thiroma, emphasized that the new uniforms would ensure spy officers present a professional image and prevent the misuse of regular police uniforms. The new uniform issuance model will be adopted by all police training schools, and organizations utilizing spy police are required to strictly adhere to the new standards.
Absolutely, I think he's correct. There is a need for them to look professional. There is a need to give them a standardized uniform, like he said. But the question is, what is the plan to maintain this, like the regular police? But by the way, when you say spy police, most people get off with the intention or with the idea that spy police is, like a secret police. That's not what this means. It's not a secret police, because if it's a secret police, the question would be, why do they need a uniform? No, this is a special kind of police that is different from the regular police. These are meant to provide security for, like on demand, as it were. If a high profile person or property demand for security, you may not give them the regular police. You just have this specialized police people. They are not the regular police, like I said. You just give them this police people to provide their duties. Just revolves around providing security for that person and maybe the property. Maybe they may not go doing your regular arresting and other things the regular police does. So I think giving them a standardized uniform and maybe, like he said, trying to differentiate them and stop abuse of the regular uniform. Stopping that abuse would also help differentiate them, so who is who. I think it's a welcome development, but how far would they maintain it? Because even the regular police, some of them still find it difficult to get uniform and all that. You still see a few of them not having uniform and all that. But I think it's a welcome development.
This point you just raised now brings us to the welfare of our security agencies, because a lot of times people point fingers at them, talking about them not doing so much, and then when you get to talk to them or get to hear from them, you hear them talking about things like them not having advanced technology to work with. You hear them talking about their welfare not being properly taken care of. That's regarding welfare now. How do you think we can move forward from that?
It's simple. Governments have to be sincere in providing security for the people. But the thing with this spy police is that they may not exactly face this challenge of welfare issues the regular police people face, because I think by the act that set them up, the person requiring for that service provide some logistic support and financial support that will take care of them, and I don't think they are expected to maybe have accommodation like living barracks or this thing. They're just the normal regular people, but trained for security purposes. But be that as it may, like you have rightly said, there is a need to improve on our security system in terms of arming them, equipping them, training them. It's a holistic thing. Government has to up its game in that area. It's not enough to send out the men, like you talk about the agro rangers. What motivation do they have? What guarantee do they have that the guy sending them out is truly behind them? Because that's that if society sends you and society is not backing you up morally and otherwise, we probably...
You think society is not backing
when I mean society, I'm using society to refer to the government.
Yes, you think government is not backing them up?
Like you just mentioned, they have issues of welfare, issues of at times you have heard of delayed payment and all that. Then their living quarters very fantastic. The ammunition, the training and the training, those are the backup that they need them. What happens to the men that die in service? How is their family taking care of? What insurance policies do they have? Those are factors that could motivate
Alright, to make their work better. But let's look at our last story now. This is an international story. It's talking about the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, that he has declared that Christmas will be celebrated early on October 1, following a disputed presidential election that the opposition claims he stole. Despite international criticism and opposition protests, Maduro, who is set for a third term, made the move in an attempt to distract the populace. The election results have been widely contested, with the elections agency claiming data corruption by hackers as the reason for not publishing vote tallies. Opposition candidate Edmundo Urrutia, who insists he won, is now with an arrest warrant against him. Protests following Maduro's alleged victory led to the death of 25 civilians, 2 soldiers, and the arrest of 200 people. You know, a lot of times there are various sides to the story, but what caught my attention was the election. You know, a lot of times Nigerians always make reference to, you know, other countries, their election process, and then talking about Nigeria having to see that this is going on in other places. I think when we want to look at the solution to some of the crisis or election crisis in Nigeria, we should also look at how some of these people get to handle theirs, and sometimes borrow leaf to that. But let's look at your sort of.
No, but there is nothing to borrow from.
Not just them, but this is highlighting but this is just highlighting that this election issue is not peculiar to Nigeria.
It in no way justify the problem we have.
Of course, it doesn't.
Yeah, that we have a lesser evil. Who even says it's lesser does not necessarily mean we should live with the evil. So Venezuela, another third world country, yeah, though they are in South America, you know, but that's dictatorship, that's democracy tilting away to the dictatorship. That's not the kind of example we want to cite here. Yes. We don't want to wake up and hear that somebody has said, oh, Christmas shouldn't be December 25th, he wants it October, because you feel like that's exactly what he said. He wants to use it as a distraction from people. So by the time, you know, this is September, so the protests will likely go on, you know, so by the time they enjoy the Christmas holidays and all that, but it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't solve the problem of the country. The guy has done 12 years, for crying out loud. What has he achieved within that time? Democracy, popular governance is about the people having a say in who governs them, willingly choosing who governs them. It doesn't matter how good you think your idea is. If the people say no to you, then excuse them and let them have their way. To insist it must be you. Now the thing is that even the countries that, if you follow up that story, even the countries that traditionally would support him are beginning to ask certain questions, which is what led to the electoral body saying hackers hacked into the system, and all that. That's just a lame excuse, so much so that you cannot tally the results. So if you can't tally the results, how did you arrive at declaring Maduro the winner? I mean, you said the system was hacked because of that. You cannot make the result public for all. Countries like Mexico have asked, okay, can we see the full result to know how you arrive at this? You say no, it was hacked. So if it was hacked, for other people to say, how did you get your own conclusion to declare him winner? Obviously, it's not a good time for Venezuela. Now, it has never been a good time anyway. They have always suffered inflation, currency crisis, and those things. Then these are countries that also have gang issues. And obviously now this is a new one. Not exactly new anyway. They are used to this type of thing. But then it shows that these politicians really have the interest of the people at heart. If he's interested in the prosperity of the country, he should excuse.
So how do you see them coming out to this? Talking about the yes, talking about the people now, the voice of the people, and what the people should ask for and not ask for. When we look at democracy, we look at the people having power. The people actually have power, but then when you look at some of the issues or some of the cases that are raised, you find out that it looks like the people do not have. Is it that the people do not know how much power they have, or is it a case of the people not making or utilizing or not wanting to speak up due to being cases where they try to talk and they were probably shot shot out or something like that? Because when we come back to Nigeria, when we talk about some of the policies of government or actions of our leaders, and then the next question one would want to ask is, what are the people doing about it?
In some cases, it's a combination of all the factors you have listed. The people not knowing how much power they have, the people knowing how much power they have, but unwilling to use that power they have. So it could be a combination of all factors, and these things didn't just happen overnight. They are historical. What is the history of the nation? If a system has been used to a redundant system, so to people has not historically participated in governance, like for example the case of Nigeria, that we had many years of prolonged military rule and dictatorship. So during that period, we have developed a system where the people really participate in governance beyond voting. That is when they vote. And we also have developed a ruling class who think they should not be questioned. So these things will take time to change. Unlike countries that have consistently been democracy over maybe decades and centuries, it seems that the people are used to demanding their right, demanding the right to participate in governance, and those who govern also historically know that I should be in office at the pleasure of the people. So it's something that has to be established. It takes education, it takes time to drive, so it will be all parties will become aware of this. The ruling class will know that, oh, I can't truly accept with the consent of the people. My policies cannot fly if the people don't agree with it. I give you an example. What happened in UK some years ago, the then Prime Minister David Cameron was a pro-Europe. He wanted UK to remain in Europe, but the people voted for Brexit, even though the match wasn't so much. Having seen that the people voted against his policy, he left the system, he resigned, and that has consistently been the British system. You see that their prime ministers resign over little disagreement on policies, unlike here that the people and government must necessarily force a policy on people. So these things will take time to happen, but it starts with the people being ready for change, with the people ready to demand for change. Of course, yes, that you ask for change today doesn't mean it will be handed over to you as a gift. In all facets of life, even as children growing up in families, you get to that point where maybe you are getting to think that you begin to demand for some freedom. You want to go out against mommy's wish. You want to hang out with your friends and all that. Even with others, you begin to assert yourself. That you asserted yourself the first day doesn't necessarily mean that a round of applause really is a round of applause given to you, but over time it's established. So the people should continue. The people should not. There will be a lot of drawbacks, like you talk about shooting at the people, trying to distract the people by declaring October Christmas rather than the traditional December. The people also should know not to be distracted. They should have their eyes on the ball.
But during your analysis, you made mention of something that not like here when we have the government forcing its policy on the people. Are you making reference to Nigeria?
Yes, Nigeria, we have seen it over time. Not just that the policies are forced on people. Public opinion counts for nothing. Ideally, government policies should weigh public opinion. Of course, there are times when maybe